Okay, students, let us move second paragraph. My gloomy thoughts probably stem from an accident I had a few years ago. One minute I was crossing the street with my wife after a lovely meal together, and the next minute a car had hit me and knocked me into my wife. She was thrown into the other lane and struck by a car coming from the opposite direction. Here, my refer to narrators. Gloomy thoughts means sad thoughts. Maybe his sad thoughts probably arised in his mind because he had an accident few years before, and this accident made him to think the people who had suffered in the world. In this accident, he was crossing the street with his wife after having a lovely meal in the restaurant. And the next minute, when he crossed the road, a car had hit him and accidentally he knocked his wife. And she was thrown into the other lane. இன்னொரு பக்கத்தில் இருக்கிற லேனுக்கு தூக்கி வாரி போடப்படுறாங்க. And accidentally a car which was coming from the opposite direction had hit her. So both of them had an accident in that incident. In the accident, he had experienced the pain and suffering in an extreme level, so that he thought about the suffering of the common people in the world. Let us move third paragraph, students. During the next few days in the hospital, I experienced not only agony and fear, but also anger. After an accident, the narrator and his wife were admitted in the hospital. During hospitalization, the narrator experienced not only agony but fear but also anger. Here, agony means extreme physical or mental pain. He experienced mental pain and physical pain and fear and also anger. கோபமும் வருது. I could not understand why my wife and I had to suffer. His anger grew because he thought why he and his wife should suffer in the world. I had 11 broken ribs and a perforated lung. Here, perforated means torn and damaged with holes. Damage ஆகிறதுன்னு சொல்லலாம். The narrator's ribs were broken and 11 ribs were broken and he had a perforated lung. அவரோட lung வந்து damage ஆயிடுச்சு. My wife had a badly fractured shoulder. His wife's shoulder was fractured. Over and over, I asked myself, why should this happen to us? Again and again, the narrator thinking over why this accident happened to him and his wife, because he had a work to do and many of the patients were waiting for him to operate on them, and they had a child who need a motherly affection to take care of. So that the narrator thinking over again and again why this accident happened to them. This thought made the narrator to feel fear and anger. Okay, students, let me continue fourth paragraph. My father, had he still been alive, would have said, my son, it's God's will. That's the way God tests you. Suffering ennobles you, makes you a better person. In this paragraph, the narrator remembered the words of his father. Here, my father referred narrator's father. Ennobles means making oneself dignified or more noble. In this paragraph, the narrator wanted to tell if his father had been alive means he would have said that the suffering was given by God. God is giving suffering to human being to make oneself more noble. This is the only way God is testing the human being. So suffering is given by God only, and that suffering made a human being more and more noble. This was the view of his father. The narrator remembered the words of his father. Let me start fifth paragraph, students. But as a doctor, I see nothing noble in a patient thrashing around in a sweat-soaked bed, mind clouded in agony. Nor can I see any nobility in the crying of a lonely child in a ward at night. Here, thrashing around means moving around restlessly. And I already told you, agony means extreme physical or mental pain. In this para, the narrator denied the view of his father. As a heart surgeon, as a doctor, he saw nothing noble when a patient experienced a great physical or mental pain, or a patient moved restlessly in a sweat-soaked bed. And he also added, he saw nothing nobility when a child was crying lonely in a ward at night. ஒரு பேஷண்ட் வலியில் பெட்டில் துடிச்சிட்டு இருக்கும்போதோ, ஒரு சின்ன குழந்தை லோன்லியாக ஹாஸ்பிட்டலில் நைட்டில் அழுதுட்டு இருக்கும்போதோ என்ன நொபிலிட்டி வந்துடும். இதுதான் காடோட டெஸ்ட் பண்ணுற விதமாக. இப்படி டெஸ்ட் பண்ணுறதுனால எந்த மாதிரியான ஒரு நொபிலிட்டி அவங்களுக்குள்ளார வளர்ந்துரும். ஸோ அந்த வியூவை நரேட்டர் ரெஃப்யூஸ் பண்ணுறாரு. Okay students, let us continue sixth paragraph. In those days, they didn't have sophisticated heart surgery. Here, sophisticated means modern, advanced techniques. In olden days, people didn't have any modern, advanced techniques in the field of medicine, especially in the heart surgery. Heart surgery la எந்த modern techniques அந்த காலத்துல இல்லை. I have found the suffering of children particularly heartbreaking, especially because of their total trust in doctors and nurses. They believe you are going to help them. If you can't, they accept their fate. They go through mutilating surgery and afterwards they don't complain. The narrator was heartbreaking because the children were admitted in the hospital had a total faith on doctors and nurses. They thought that the nurses and doctors are going to help them. If they can't, they accept their fate. If the doctors or nurses can't able to save their life, means they accept their own fate. They went through mutilating surgery. Here mutilating means a surgery involving removal of tissue even at the risk of worsening of the patient's condition. ஒரு சில டைம்ல டாக்டர் சொல்லுவாங்க இல்லையா, இந்த ஆப்ரேஷன் பண்ணா உயிருக்கே கூட ஆபத்தா வரலான்னு சொல்லிட்டு, அது போல சர்ஜரி தான் மியூட்டிலேட்டிங் சர்ஜரி. They went through mutilating surgery and afterwards if the operation was failed means they didn't complain about it. அந்த பேஷண்ட்ஸ் வந்து டாக்டர்ஸ் மேலேயும் நர்சஸ் மேலேயும் மொத்த நம்பிக்கையும் வைக்கிறாங்க. அந்த ஆப்ரேஷனுக்கு அப்புறம் அந்த பலன் கிடைக்கலனாலும் டாக்டர்ஸையும் நர்சஸையும் அவங்க குறை சொல்கிறதில்ல, அவங்களோட ஃபேட்டை அக்செப்ட் பண்ணிக்கிறாங்க. இந்த ஒரு விஷயம் எனக்கு ரொம்ப ஹார்ட் பிரேக்கிங்காக இருக்குது. அவ்வளோ ஒரு நம்பிக்கை பேஷண்ட்ஸ் வைக்கும்போதும் நிறைய பேஷண்ட்ஸை காப்பாற்ற முடியல, நிறைய பேஷண்ட்ஸோட வலியை நீக்க முடியலன்னு நினைக்கும் போது ஆஸ் அ சர்ஜியனாக டாக்டராக எனக்கு பெயினாக இருக்குன்னு சொல்கிறாரு.